Normally it has. Oh, there you go.
Hello, my name is Jo Palmer and I am the founder and managing director of Pointer Remote. We are a company that is passionate about supporting businesses and individuals from all over Australia, particularly those in rural areas looking to leverage remote work. We support businesses to grow their team and individuals to re-enter the workforce or upskill in remote. And we also work with communities themselves to support them to attract and retain population and to increase economic development in their area. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Vickie Burkinshaw. And Vickie she wears many hats, two of which will loop into what she's talking about today. One is that she is the founder of Pyjamas, which is a change management consulting firm. And she is also the co-founder of Beyond Business Groups, which is a really fabulous organisation that really works really well to put businesses together to actually go through all sorts of aspects of running a business, and particularly really fabulous for business owners who live in rural, regional or remote areas, because quite often it's quite challenging to find other like-minded businesses. And as a graduate, would I call myself a graduate of one of your programs?
Yes.
Okay. I can really vouch for what the connections and things that you can make through doing a program where you actually work on your business rather than just in it. So that's a little spruik. So I've very much enjoyed my program that I did. So there you go, Vickie. So Vickie, as I said, wears lots of hats, but I would say very passionate about change management and the impact that that can make in organisations, not only for the people running the show, but for the people working there. And so we've worked with Vickie for a number of years in a variety of ways, and the feedback that we always get is amazing from working with you, Vickie. So we thought we would get you on for one of these sessions to actually, we're going to run it a little bit differently to how we normally run our Ask Me Anything sessions, and you're actually going to give us a bit of a mini session, I guess, and then we can drill down into some questions and things with you. So welcome. If you want to give us a bit more of an in-depth intro than I've just done, it would be fab to hear a little more, but go for it, you're on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jo. It's always fantastic to work with you guys at Pointer and the amazing network that you have. And yes, I'm extremely passionate about business and making sure that people can earn money while they sleep, hence the name Purple Pyjamas. So it really is about knowing that when you've tucked yourself up in bed, or you tucked your children up in bed, that you can feel safe, that everything is taken care of. So that's about creating businesses. My definition of a business is a business that can operate without you. So that's what we're all aiming for. And in terms of businesses that don't always rely 100% on you. So you can go and lie on the beach on holidays and know that everything is taken care of. So part of that journey, I guess, in getting there is understanding that change is inevitable. And even though we think, the massive amount of change that we've had to overcome over the last 18 months has been massive, change is always part of our lives. So today I just wanted to introduce a little bit of that, and using my favorite analogies. I always like to use animals, and today is no exception. So today I'm actually talking about elephants, because I do have a little fascination for elephants. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Presentation. There we go. You can see that now. So what we can learn for elephants. I've always had this fascination for elephants, whether that's been in the zoo or whether that's been seeing them up close and personal. And I think, one of the things about elephants is how their lives have been grown and developed as humans as much as anything else. So, back in the day when they were circus performers, or allowed to be circus performers, they were treated a little bit differently. And I think, the idea about change being constant means that we're always living in this era of something needs to rattle me. Like, I need to get used to the uncomfortability of change. And interestingly, this morning I was writing an article about the difference between transformation and change. And I think that, where we're at the moment is we can't constantly change. We actually need to transform ourselves and look at the different ways that we can use change in a really positive way, because I think with change becomes a lot of opportunities. The reason that one of the reasons that I get interested in the elephants is the fact that they are actually the closest animal to humans in terms of the way that the brain operates. So, and the size of the brain as well. And also the fact that when we're born, humans and elephants are very similar in terms of what they know. So a lot of animals pop out and they know kind of almost everything. With humans and elephants, we pop out of the womb and we don't know too much. So we're always learning. So we only know 25% on what we're going through. We're born, which means we're always learning. So that for me is super exciting, because any of us that have studied the brain, when we went through those phases, every single book was about the brain and training your brain. I got right into that. And the fact that you can actually manipulate the way that you think and the way that you feel by practicing brain training techniques. And I think, remembering that the human brain starts off so infantile is a good way of doing that. But the brain can change, as we know. So a baby elephant, if it was, back in the day in the circus, if it was chained up as a baby elephant where it's, say, couple of hundred kilos, it will still remain chained when it's a 4-ton elephant with the same size chain, because it thinks it can't break for the chain. So as a baby elephant that's constantly fighting and realizes that it can't release itself, still thinks when it's an older adult that these are the things that are holding it back. But we now know that we can change some of the conditioning. So we're all the result of our upbringing. We're all the result of the things that have happened to us and the different things, positive or negative, that go into our lives. But the exciting thing about the way that the brain works is we can actually alter we can't alter the past, we can alter the way that we think about the future. And I think that that's the really exciting opportunity in terms of transformation, is really looking at how far you can take your brain, how far you can take everything that you're doing. And if we think about what we've had to do in COVID, we've had to accelerate our learning so intensely, and that's been of great benefit in so many ways. If you want to take the silver lining, the big silver lining is that we're working from home, so I'm sitting there in front of the fire. It's all very nice in here, that we have learned how to do that, and we've accepted that we can do that. And then for things like Pointer Remote, super exciting that there is this acceptance that people can work from anywhere. Always could, always should have been able to, but now it's a thing, right? So we really need to embrace that. And thinking about the constant move into lockdown that's happening in Melbourne, where I lived for 20 years, it's it's interesting to see that the minute people could get back to 9 to 5, they did, which was just crazy. So I think if anything, we've learned lots of things and we've unlearned them as well. So I think, sometimes these are life lessons. I think it's always interesting to look at, you would have might have seen this curve quite a few times, but it was interesting in terms of looking at how it's adapted around COVID and the different feelings, because I think we all recognize that we went on a bit of a roller coaster over COVID. I mean, we're so blessed, for those of us that are living in remote and rural communities. I'm sitting here at the Rock. Joe's, in Wagga today. Normally we'd be a little bit closer to each other, but we've been so blessed that we haven't been touched as much as other places for COVID. But, we carry this sense of how other people are feeling, because we're humans and we have empathy. And part of the roller coaster that we'll go through in doing that, and it'll be a consistent roller coaster, is that right at the start there are all these people that said it's not happening, it's not real, it'll never happen to us, it's not going to impact on us. then it's like, why the hell is this happening to us? This can't be a thing. How come we can't change it? How come we can't fix it? As humans, we just want to fix it. We want to go back to being normal. I mean, at least all of us have stopped saying, we're going back to normal, because now it's the new normal. And then we can slump into that sort of despair, like it's never going away. Why isn't it going away? Why can't we fix it? We can do so many things as humans. Why can't we fix it? And then we move into that area of acceptance. So we understand that this is the new normal, that we'll be living with COVID or something else in the future as part of that. So how can we work within our organisations? How can we work within our families and within our communities to actually accept the realities and then invest in what we need to do into a new future? So we've gone through the emotions. So how can we then use them in terms of transforming and committing to a future that accepts where we're at the moment, but also knowing that anything can happen that might impact on us? So what are the things that we've learnt? What are the things that we would have really benefited from? What do we keep? And what do we throw out as part of the change? Another nice little analogy is when the story about the rider and the elephant, and it's, an elephant will not move unless it is motivated to move. And for any of you that have seen, someone riding an elephant or have ridden an elephant, there's a lot of trust associated between the rider and the elephant, but it's also, a rider cannot make an elephant move unless it's motivated to move. So what an elephant is motivated by will depend on different days. And coming back to the first point, that elephants are very similar to the human brain, that they have communities that are very similar, that baby elephants stick with their mothers and their community into their teenage years. So they're still learning up until then. They, support each other. They stick with their community and their tribes for a long time. And an elephant relies on senses, it relies on trust in order to develop a relationship with a human. So the rider has to work out the ways that an elephant will be motivated, whether that's by food, whether that's by stroking it, whether that's by having some fun. Elephants like to have fun as well. And in the same way, the rider needs to know about the elephant needs to know about the rider for that elephant to actually move, because you're not going to move an elephant if it's not motivated to do so. So part of that is tapping into, what are the things that motivate you to move? What are the things that motivate you and your community, within your community, to take action, to transform, to change? So we all have different motivations, and each of us are so individual within that, but it's tapping into that and saying, what are the things that motivate me to change? Is it the push or the pull? And as we know with elephants, you couldn't push it or you couldn't pull it. It has to actually be motivated by something deep within it. And that's what we need to find within ourselves, is what are the things that are really making us tick, and how can we be motivated to transform and to change before we're forced into it in some way. And part of that is really looking at changing your mindset and coming back to the fact that we can change our brains. And we know that, within all of that, the default position that we always come back to is we are the biggest critic of ourselves. And we will look externally and think people are criticizing us, but really what that's happening is we're internalizing it. So, when you think about, and you'll know sets of people within your friendship groups or within your family groups that have a very fixed mindset. And these were the people that stayed, far more, from a COVID perspective, might still be in that depression stage because they can't see their way forward. They can't see their way out. So for them, there is that sense that my intelligence is static. I am where I am. I can't do anything about it. So they tend to avoid challenges. They give up easily. They think it's not worth trying because it's not going to make a difference anyway. And these are the type of people that feel threatened by the success of others. But when you look at the growth mindset, it's about saying, You know, I want to learn all the time. I want to be learning all of the time. I want to surround myself with people who want to be learning. I embrace those challenges. I know that, okay, I'm not going to get it right all the time, but if I keep trying, I'll get some of the things right some of the time. And that's enough for me to keep going on my journey. And that you see that this effort is actually going to lead to results, and that, you know, that you learn from criticism. So that you will take criticism and you will pick the bits out of it that are valid, and you will learn from it, and then you will move on. So, you know, I guess part of the challenge is to say, when am I feeling like I'm in a fixed mindset and I really can't move on, and how could I change that mindset to be a little bit more flexible in my thinking? Because you know, there's been numerous amounts of studies that have shown that you can perform to the best of your ability if you keep changing the way that you think about things that you feel are fixed, because as we know, nothing stays the same. And one of the ways to focus on things that matter is, one of my favorite things to do is to make sure that so many things in your life that shouldn't take up any of your brain space, that shouldn't take any of your time, put into place like a toothbrush. So I think every single one of you today would know where your toothbrush was, right? Like, you don't put it in a different spot every day and go and find it, right? It goes back into the same spot after you brush your teeth every day. Even from a very small child, the toothbrush goes back into the toothbrush holder, whatever variety of that is. You don't think about it. You don't go to work going, oh, I wonder where I put my toothbrush, like you might do if you don't iron, like me, and you occasionally get the iron out and go, oh, I wonder if I left the iron on. So it's about trying to apply the toothbrush principle to those things that you don't need to be thinking about. So you don't need to think about where you put your toothbrush. It's about trying to compartmentalize all of the things that shouldn't take up your brain space, because at any one time we are trying to multitask, we are trying to do 100 things at once. But if we can take away 95 of those things and put them into our toothbrush holder, it's going to be easy. And an example of that is that at the same time every week I put petrol or diesel into my car when my son's at training. And I don't care whether it's got a quarter of a tank in or almost a full tank, that's when it gets done. I don't have to think about it. I know I hate running out of petrol, or the idea of running out of petrol living so far out of town. So it's just done. I don't have to think about menu planning, because the menu's done, you know, once a week. I don't have to think about my clothes, because my clothes are laid out for the entire week. I look at the weather report and my clothes are laid out based on that. So I don't have to think about it. I don't get up and go, what am I going to wear today? You know, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold. It's just done. And that means that my brain has more capacity for focusing on the fun stuff, focusing on the stuff that I wanted to, focusing on how I can change, how I can transform and adapt, focusing on music or pleasure, and things that, if you've got this thing at the back of your mind, what are we going to have for tea? I don't know what to wear. Then you're not focusing on some of those other things. So as many things in your life, and I know, the Pointer guys talk about it in terms of, calendar blocking. So it's applying that same principle in terms of calendar blocking to those things in your life that will free you up to be more creative in the way that you can use your brain. So it's not only calendar blocking for your tasks and calendar blocking for your projects, it's actually calendar blocking for those things in your life that you shouldn't have to think about. It's just, this is the way things are done around here, and this is the way that things are done in our household or in our community. And it's a no-brainer. You don't have to think about it. It's where the toothbrush is. So have a think about all those things that you can apply in your day into a toothbrush idea, so you're not thinking about it. Like anything, I have hurry sickness, and I know many of you out there many entrepreneurs have that sense of hurry sickness and want to get things done straight away and quickly. But we all know that transformation, change, business, takes longer, costs more money than we ever can imagine. And I guess, if you think about it in terms of the longer game, then you're going to accept that it does take time and patience. So the poor old mother of a baby elephant is pregnant for 22 months, just put it that way. So in perspective, we don't have to wait that long for some of that pleasure, but time and patience is really important for us to be able to achieve change, for example. But again, there's some simple things that we can do around the toothbrush principle that can have transformational change straight away. And of course, you can eat an elephant one fork at a time. You will get there if you have that mindset, if you have an open mindset, if you're committed to that change and also committed to being who you are, because be yourself, everybody else is taken. So, part of the discussion that we wanted to have today was looking at what are some of the blockages, what are some of those brain blockages that are preventing you from changing, and what are some of the simple things that you can do straight away in your life that drive yourself crazy. If you're always losing your keys, or you're always forgetting to put things away, or you're always losing things, and what are some of the things that you can put into place to change little things that end up giving you far much more time than you think in any day. And over to you, Jo.
So good. So finishing off thinking about eating an elephant in any way, shape or form is always a bit disturbing.
No, possibly not.
But it's so funny because this is like the bane of my existence is my husband losing his car keys like all the time.
Yeah.
I don't understand. My keys go in the same spot every day. I just do not understand why he doesn't put the keys there. It drives me.
Absolutely.
Because it's always obviously in a flap when he's trying to get out of the house in the mornings, or something that he's looking around for the keys in whatever pants that he had on yesterday or whatever. It's so ridiculous. So I guess I've always got so many questions, but I guess as far as like a general sort of, like you've touched on a lot, that there's been so many changes that people are going through, not just in the last 12 months, but I guess that the change that normally happens at a more individual pace, or for an individual or for a business or things, normally pokes along and is not really influenced in a huge way by outside forces, whereas there's been en masse change in the last sort of 12 to 18 months globally. Bringing it back to sort of a flexibility and remote work sort of lens to it, have you got sort of 3 key things for people to sort of think about? Like, I know when in the past, prior to a global pandemic, if we talked about creating more flexibility or setting up as a hybrid organisation, or sort of incorporating remote work into your business or your career, you would have done it quite a different way. Have you got sort of 3 tips now that we've sort of into it and people have had some exposure in some way, shape or form, and we're sort of now almost cherry picking the bits and pieces that will take this or will leave this or moving forward? Have you got some sort of tips or strategies for people to start, sort of like where to actually start when you've got to the stage now where you're like, okay, I want to formalize this, or I want to really embed this into, this is how we do things here? Because I feel like a lot of people are just sort of treading water and are sort of like, oh, this will sort of sort itself out eventually. But obviously, like with any change, it needs to be managed and it needs to actually strategically be worked towards. So have you got any sort of tips around where to start when you've already started?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of one, firstly is to recognize how well we've done, just to really celebrate the fact that we were able to learn so much so quickly. and in so much detail, that really demonstrates how amazing we are as humans in being able to adapt and be flexible. So holding on to the idea of, it's not all doom and gloom. We should be celebrating the fact that we were able to transform into a better way of working. And, I think that we know that was within us. And part of that is in recognizing what did we do really well as part of that. So celebrating the things that we've done really well. So it's almost like doing a strengths and weaknesses. This is what we did really well. This is what we didn't do so well. And how do we take those lessons into the future? And really about, change management is nothing more than looking at what we've done in the past and then looking at how we might change things into the future. And then with the transformation then starts assessing the future. So what's actually going to happen in the future? So looking back, celebrating what we've learned, what we've achieved, how remarkable we are as people and as humans, taking the best, like you said, cherry picking. These are the things that are now non-negotiable ways to start our business. And the boring bit about that is developing policy and process. So this is now a non-negotiable part of the way that we do things around here. So actually putting into place, we had to do things really quickly. Now, with retrospect, we can put some policy around that. And I know that that's a word that a lot of small businesses think, oh, that's the big business, but it's actually not, because if you have a policy for any new person or a non-negotiable that ties into your vision, your mission and your values, these are the things that we now do around here. And we want to hold on to those because we know that they worked really well for our business. And we know that in transforming our business into the future, they're going to work really well for us as we grow and as we, morph into the next stage of our business. So making sure that we hold on to those things and put them into a policy or a process or incorporate them into our vision, mission, value statements. So it's a really good time now to look back at some of the things that you might have done, or even if you don't have a vision, mission, value statement, is to say, because of this, these are, and I guess that's one of the things that have happened during the pandemic, is we've worked out what's really important to us and who's really important to us and what elements of our life we miss the most and how we, what are the first things we're going to do to incorporate back into our lives when things change. So we've done all that hard work. It's about saying, how can I best benefit from that? So, one, celebration of what you've actually been able to achieve. Two, in terms of hold on to those good things that have really happened and really worked for your business and incorporate them, indoctrinate them into, policy, vision, mission, strategy, documents, business plans, and then take the opportunity to say, okay, I'm not going to wait for a pandemic to make me embrace transformation. So how do I incorporate that constant will to be the better version of my business, to be the better version of myself? Like, how do I, calendar block that, if you like, in terms of working on my business, not just in my business, working on myself, not just treading water. Like, how am I professionally developing myself? How am I growing my business and transforming my business in a way that not when we're forced to do it, but when we have the time and the energy and this new mindset that we've got, because we've gotten rid of some of the clutter of our brain, that we can use these kind of creative forces to look at the future without it being scary.
Touched on there that small business can often find that concept of policies and procedures and things almost sitting off to the side, that doesn't really apply because you're small, but know that that's definitely not the case. And you do have policies and procedures, even if they're not actually written in a formal way with a letterhead or laminated up on the wall in the office. I think a lot of the organisations that we deal with, we find that there's this overwhelm of where to start. So thank you for those tips as far as sort of getting at least into the headspace of some structure around where to next. My next question is sort of more around like that resistance to change, and looking at that probably two answers to it. For an organisation where the owner or the leadership team or whoever's sort of running the show and making big strategic as well as operational decisions, what do you find are the best strategies to bring people along? Because, like, again, we're humans and are resistant to change. How do you sort of actually then go from, once you've cherry picked, how do you bring everyone with you? I know that's like a really massive question, but say answering that in two ways. Like, how do you do that when management is on board and it's a bit trickier to bring the team, and then vice versa, if you're like the employee, how do you sort of encourage that change to go up the chain, or manage up with those things?
Yeah, and I guess that, it comes back to, the rider and the elephant analogy. Like, what are the motivations? So having a really good understanding, one of the things that we always focus on, Joe, is really looking at having an understanding of self and knowing the way, what motivates other people, and having a really good sense of what is important to other people as well as what's important to us. So if we have a good understanding, for example, what might be motivating our managers, if that's about money, then we're presenting a return on investment. Like, we were able to really achieve this return on investment by doing it this way. Let's indoctrinate that into the future because it's worked really well for us. If the motivation is ego, then we all know how to work with people with egos. It might be about letting them think that it's their idea. All of us that have ever worked with men with big egos know how to do that. So making them feel like it's their idea in moving forward. So, having a good understanding, tapping into your intuition. And if anyone, I know that, through the Pointer program that you touch on DISC as well. So, if you have any of those tools available to you, you'll know that people communicate differently. So part of that is observation. So listening to the language that people use, mimicking, active listening. So you can learn a lot by active listening to people, by repeating the things that they're saying, by getting a sense of those types of things that are important to them can come out quite a lot in their language. So becoming a really good reader of people, but also understanding what some of the limitations are, within yourself in terms of if you're bringing an idea forward. So having an idea about what are the things that are going to motivate the organisation or the people within the organisation to make them feel that, for one, maybe it's not even about change. It's just about, well, we've done things differently. Let's just keep them going. So language becomes really important part of that, so that there's not, fear attached to change. It's just about, well, let's just keep going, this way. We've done it really well. It's been great for the organisation. So we've compared, the past to the future. Let's just keep going in that direction. So, it's about what has been the result of the change, and where have the benefits been, and tapping into those benefits that are going to mean something to the team and to the organisation, without it being a scary thing. So I think by understanding ourselves and what our own motivations are, and knowing that might not be the motivations of the people around us. So, separating ourselves from the, a lot of the time it's about stepping back and going, okay, what's going on in this space and why is there resistance? So tapping into the why is there resistance, what's making that elephant move, will be different for everybody.
It's so interesting. In a sort of practical sense, is there ways for organizations to sort of again, drilling down into that motivation thing with employees, apart from, I'm sort of thinking of so generally a business with a small team, you can generally pick up what motivates people. You might have done psychometric testing like DISC or Myers-Briggs or something like that. For organizations that sort of haven't done that sort of stuff and are still or could be maybe quite big, or with a high, lots of employees, or maybe a high staff turnover, or big part-time sort of things. If you've got a relatively big team and it's quite tricky to actually understand the motivations and things, there's some sort of hot tips or strategies on things on how to actually assess what's motivating the individuals that are working for you, and then actually making decisions around that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, there could be ways that you could formalize it, by interviewing people or getting them to, choose different things. It could be a simple survey, or, I find again and again, I'm just trying to find, I was looking at a survey that was done recently, and, my background, Joe, having worked for the Body Shop for 10 years, and knowing that it's an organisation that has its values alongside its profits with principles, is that what motivates people more than money is actually a sense of purpose. So, the low hanging fruit in all of this, if people feel that they're contributing to something bigger and better than themselves, bigger and better than the organisation, if they feel that, they're contributing to the community in a way that they can do through their work, that they know that, work is committed, genuinely committed to their local community or to a global community, then that is going to be motivation in itself. And it comes back to time and time again that people will shift workplaces if the values are better. People will shift workplaces if they feel that there's something bigger than what's actually going into their paycheck as part of that. And so for me, the low-hanging fruit would be, as an organisation, if you're a team leader or a manager, what can you do together as a team that's going to make a big difference in the lives of others? And, that can be totally motivational.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I suppose that, like, quite often you have a look at what is motivating you as an individual, and then giving an opportunity. Well, I get it comes back to communication, like with everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
whole, but two-way communication rather than directing from the top.
Yeah, that's it. And that, having that, and having, ensuring that you do have those communication loops back into it. So I know that, a lot of organizations have this enormous focus on external communication, but they don't have internal communications managers. And part of my role as Body Shop was external communications as well as internal, because if you don't, if you've got people within an organization that don't know what's going on within that organization or external to the organization, then that becomes, really challenging as well. So part of that, is having, boring policies, system and processes for people to be able to give feedback, for people to be able to reach out and in different ways and in their own style as well, because some people won't feel comfortable eyeballing someone to tell them what they think or what they need. It might be that you have, at the Body Shop, we had a red letter system. So, you drop your comments in there, or, back in the day, it was the back of the toilets if you wanted to write notes, about things that mattered, and then you can formalize things in terms of like a survey or a questionnaire that can be anonymous. But there are always ways to loop people back in, and there is nothing more isolating, and particularly as we know now with all this remote work, we have to recreate these cultures in an external environment, in a slightly different environment. So if you're used to, so one of the things that we used to do as part of the comms team was sit down and read the newspaper together. One, it was, we were media monitoring to see whether there was anything that was going on that was relevant to what we were doing. But two, it was part of that, belly to belly communication and checking in and, seeing how the weekend was, etc. So, and I know that we've talked about that too, is how do we recreate some of those cultural norms in a different environment? So I've seen some really fantastic examples of companies where, they will sit down and have their cup of tea together in the morning, the same as they would have if they were bumping into each other at the water cooler, right? So how can we recreate those ideas? There's another company that has, they used to have Friday drinks. So they'd have Friday drinks, but it would be on Zoom, and trivias, and, show us your worst cup in your house, or, different things that kept people, engaged throughout there. So we've got these terrific examples of things that worked. So how do we take the best of the best and copy them or turn them into ways that are going to really work for our own organizations as well? So that communication is key, and knowing that people communicate differently. Zoom has been terrible for a lot of people. who aren't able to express themselves in a way. It's hard for facilitators who can't read the room. It's hard for people who like to dominate conversation and other people who don't. So we've learned all these lessons. We've become better at utilizing. So again, it's recognizing that we should celebrate what we've learned, but also that we need to hold on to those things and identify where we haven't quite nailed it and look for examples. All across the world, we can look for examples now of where small organizations, large organizations have done it well, and we can do our own interpretation of that.
So interesting. So a question that's been coming up a lot of late has been, well, sort of egged on by the call to return to the office to support store like cafes and dry cleaners and all of the businesses that sort of popped up, being quite obviously dependent on CBD foot traffic and people going into offices and things like that. What I keep sort of hearing and seeing and saying to people is that I think this hybrid model is going to be moving forward, that a lot of organisations, when they do the cherry picking, will realise that there still is a place for some organisations. And look, a lot of organisations, that sense of home base being an office, or like I think that the number of companies that can go fully remote, that is obviously increasing, and a lot of those businesses start that way in the first place. But what I'm finding that so many people are having that really big challenge is that how do you sort of manage it when you've got a split of those that are like, yeah, let's get back in and let's do even if it's 3 days a week in the office and then the other 2 days are at home. And then there's the others that are like, no, this really works for me. I'm really productive. This works with our family. And when you're trying to make change, but it's resistance in a way, but it's like, how do you sort of find that happy medium? And so, sorry, that's a very big question, because I think a lot of people think, but you don't have to have an answer for it, but just your sort of thoughts around when moving forward is actually, you can't decide or make a definitive decision around what that moving forward looks like.
Yeah, look, and I think you've actually just hit the nail on the head in terms of, we don't have to be definitive. We're caught up in the idea that everything has to be, perfect. But, we're going through this transformation in a way that we haven't worked out what's working for us yet. So I think that, there's the perfect opportunity. I mean, I'm just looking at I was writing this article about change versus transformation, is that a butterfly is a transformation. It's not a better caterpillar, right? So it's, looking at the whole idea in terms of we're at this place where we can make it work for everybody. That's just super exciting. It's like we can have these hybrids where what works for us and works for our community and works for our family, which is the way it always should be. I mean, it comes back to, the business model of the Quakers. Like, we are so caught up in, I know I talk about this, apologies to people that are on the call that I drive crazy about, like from the Industrial Revolution. Like, we've got this idea of that's the way we have to work and that's the way we have to operate, is this kind of 9 to 5, but it doesn't work that way. Our communities don't work that way. We don't thrive that way. Our kids don't thrive in those kind of environments. So it actually can, it's a really sexy, exciting opportunity where we're at the moment, is to create these organizations that actually work around the needs of individuals. I mean, an organization, a business is only made up of people, right? And we forget about that. And one of our, sayings that Graham, who is the franchisee for the Body Shop in Australia, said is, you don't leave your values on the hat stand when you walk into business. And more and more now we're realizing that we get the most out of people when we enable them to be part of the community, when we enable them to contribute to their families and work in a way that really suits the people that they are, the other commitments that they have. And if you think about sort of back in the day when we first started to shop on the internet, I mean, that grew exponentially. That we can shop and sit by a hospital bed, we can do all these things as humans, and contribute into the economy, as workers into the economy in a way that suits everybody. So I think, yes, there is that resistance because it's that sense of, going back, but no one wants to go backwards. We just want to go forwards. And that whole, let's get back to normal, I really, resisted having to say that, because we don't want to go backwards. We never want to go backwards in life. We always want to be moving forwards. And part of that is celebrating what we've been able to achieve and holding on to all those good things. So I think that, it's super exciting for organizations. It'll be, far cheaper and far more productive for people to be able to work in ways that really suit them and their communities and their families. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Like, we're here for each other, not the machine, right? So, the opportunity, I think, for organizations that get that, they're going to get the best workers, right?
Oh gosh, okay, I have to finish on that because that's like unreal. I love that. And I love that concept of that you can make it work for everyone. And I think that we're in this rush, I think, to sort of, you're right, to make a decision and this is what it's going to be like moving forward. But there's time, like, especially the businesses that have survived until now over the last 12 months, like, don't rush it and really think it through and get advice and mull it over and talk about things internally and survey the bejesus out of everyone, and to really see how it can moving forward, because it can work moving forward, because you're right, there's such an incredible opportunity. So good. Okay, I'm going to leave it on there. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on to the end of that?
No, look, I mean, I think we've got this enormous opportunity to design our own future and then invent ways to realize it, right? So, we can do it. We can do anything that we want. We've proven that. So let's make it exactly what we want.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think that people starting businesses now have just got this, again, a really interesting opportunity to sort of try and reinvent. And it's really easy to sort of slip into things. And you're right, we're conditioned, industrial revolutionary conditioned to sort of think that it has to work like that, but it well and truly doesn't. And that's, yeah, it's a really exciting time for those that are wanting to embrace, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect time to start a business.
Yeah, so good. Thanks so much, Vickie. Much appreciated as always.
Yes, we'll see you soon.
Bye.